The millionaire senior doesn't believe it until seeing a black beggar hold his hand in a miracle. Miss Elsa sat cold and helpless in her wheelchair by the riverside park. The winter had just loosened its grip, but inside her tiny high-rise apartment, the world still felt frozen. At 78, paralyzed from a stroke that slammed her life into silence, she was a prisoner of her own body. From her cold window, the city's roar was distant, an echo she could barely catch. Her children, Mark and Lucy, visited, but spoke in clipped tones, their voices tight with worry and something like fear. They treated her like fragile glass, scared she might shatter again. Elsa's days blended into one long shadow, until today. A boy appeared, David. He was ragged, skin dark like the city's soggy asphalt, eyes sharp as broken glass. His smile, though, bright and wild, cut through the dullness like a sudden spark in the dark. People glanced and whispered, shifted away. Homeless, they said. Dangerous. Mark warned when he heard about him. But Elsa saw something else. She saw hope. He approached slowly, as if there was a fragile thread between them. She felt the chill of the day, the stiff wind biting her cheeks. Then his hand, small, rough, wrapped in torn gloves, reached out, trembling, and gripped hers tightly. It wasn't just a touch. It was raw electricity. Elsa's heart slammed, breath caught, muscles twitched, an impossible surge of life flooding through her veins. For the first time in months, her fingers moved. Slowly, painfully, but they moved. Chaos stirred around them. Passers-by stopped, eyes wide. Some whispered about miracles, others about madness. Mark and Lucy burst onto the scene, faces red and angry, voices rising above the hum of the park. "That boy's a threat," Mark spat. "She's not well enough for this nonsense." But Elsa held on to David's hand, to the miracle blossoming inside her shattered body. At home, Vera, Elsa's nurse and silent guardian, watched quietly. She saw the fire reigniting in Elsa's eyes. Elsa confessed her secret desire to adopt David, to claim him as family, to fill a hollow inside she barely dared name. A deep scar from years ago when her best friend Sita vanished, leaving behind a son lost to the world. And then the shock cut deeper. David was Sita's son, her dead best friend's boy, the missing piece buried in her past. The boy everyone else feared, the boy who might heal or break her. Mark and Lucy pushed harder, threatening lawyers, guardianship, safety. They saw danger where Elsa felt salvation. The park's warmth seemed a lie now, the miracle of fragile flames surrounded by storms. Elsa stood, trembling, caught between love and fear, between family's cold control and the fierce hope David unearthed. Holding his hand, the city's noise faded. Her heart swelled with questions. Love, loss, and what it means to call someone family. Could she break free? Or would the fear of others snuff out this fragile, wild chance? The wind whispered across the riverside trees as Elsa's eyes searched David's, looking for an answer that wasn't there yet. "Hey, Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you... And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Elsa's heart pounded as she stared into David's eyes, searching for reassurance amid the chaos. The warmth of his hand felt like a lifeline. Yet the frigid air carried whispers of disapproval. Mark's face twisted in fury. Lucy glanced at her brother, her brow furrowed with concern. "Let her go, David!" Mark shouted, stepping forward like a shield. His voice cut sharp through the murmurs. But David didn't flinch. His grip tightened, fierce determination blazing in his eyes. In that moment, Elsa thought of all the love she had left to give. Was it enough to protect this boy? Then a sudden shout pierced the air, a noise unlike the usual park sounds. "Police, step away!" Panic erupted around them. A pair of officers charged through, uniformed shadows in the bright daylight. Elsa's grip on David's hand loosened slightly, confusion clouding her thoughts. Mark jumped in front of her, his expression a mixture of protectiveness and authority. "What's going on?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The second officer approached David directly, a serious frown on his face. "David Thompson, we need to talk to you." A wave of realization washed over Elsa, her breath catching. David's face paled, a chilling contrast to the earlier spark. "Wait!" he murmured, stepping back. "Is this boy a threat?" one officer barked, his eyes glaring like storm clouds. And then it happened. A woman, a stranger, burst through the crowd. She looked frantic, hair tangled like thorns. "No, no, you can't take him!" Her voice broke like fragile glass. "He didn't do anything." The air thickened with tension. Elsa's mind raced. Who was she? The crowd murmured, drawn together like moths to a flame, heads bobbing in a sea of confusion. Suddenly, the woman pointed at Elsa, her finger shaking. You've got no right to him! You abandoned him!" A jolt coursed through Elsa's body, her heart sinking. "Abandoned?" The word thudded against her chest like a punch. Then it hit her hard. The name. The boy. "Saida?" she whispered, her voice choked. That woman. Saida's boy. The lost child who had become a ghost in her past. "Elsa, you need to remember." Sida's voice echoed in her mind, laughter intertwined with memories of loss. Now here stood David, a silhouette of her friend, a haunting reminder. She wanted to shout, to defend him, but her heart raced with panic. Mark turned horrified, realization dawning in his eyes. "Mom, what do you mean abandoned? You knew him?" But Elsa couldn't answer. The chaos whirled around her. David's face twisted in fear, the officers inching closer, and Sida's desperate eyes boring into her. Questions danced in her head, suffocating her. What if he wasn't just a boy? What if he was her last connection to a past she'd buried? Silence hung like a weight. The world paused. And then, "David, come!" the woman cried, desperation spilling over like a tidal wave. But the officers lunged forward. Suddenly, David stumbled back, colliding into the crowd. No! Elsa cried, lunging forward. Her hand was empty. The warmth was gone. And then it happened. A gunshot rang out. Time slowed. Eyes widened. A scream echoed, cutting through the air like crystal shattering. The crowd recoiled, and David fell to the ground. The world erupted in panic as Elsa's heart cracked wide open. Everything had changed in a heartbeat. Who was she fighting for now? Was this her miracle or a nightmare unleashed? The park filled with shouts and terror as Elsa stood transfixed. A storm of emotions raging inside, desperate for answers she might never find. The park exploded in chaos. Elsa stood frozen, eyes wide, her breath hitching in her throat. David lay sprawled on the ground, time freezing around him. The world blurred into a smear of colors and sounds, screams and shouts ricocheting off her heart. "Somebody help him!" she cried, her voice breaking like thin glass. The sirens wailed, a banshee call cascading through the park, punctuating the air thick with dread. But as she stumbled forward, a strange, sudden push gripped her. A figure shot from the edge of the crowd, darting like a hawk. It was the frantic woman, Sita's boy's mother, her eyes bright with a frantic light. "No!" she screamed, rushing toward David. But two officers held her back, hands gripping her arms like iron chains. "How could you?" she bellowed, eyes flaring with a mix of anger and grief. Mark turned, confusion thick on his face. "What do you mean by that?" "Shut up, Mark!" Lucy shouted, her voice laced with panic, straining to break through the turmoil. "We need to get help!" The officers called for backup, dispatching urgency into the air, and Elsa's mind spiraled. Who was this woman? A surge of recognition shot through her. A strange familiarity gnawed at the edges of her thoughts. Suddenly, David's voice cut through the din, weak but clear. "Mom, it's okay. Don't—" His breath was shallow, yet a note of calm punctured the chaos. The crowd hushed, falling into an uneasy silence. The officer stepped back, confusion shadowing his brow. "What? I'm fine. Just help her," David gasped, pointing desperately at the woman whose face was now twisted with horror. Elsa's heart raced as she realized David wasn't afraid of the officers. He was afraid for the woman. Then, like a thunderclap, the truth slammed into her. This boy, her miracle, was not just a lost child. He was the link to a haunting past, a connection to Sita. What had she been blind to? "David!" she called, desperation crackling in her voice. "Wait!" But he turned, facing the woman in a way that twisted her heart. "Mom, don't!" With a sudden movement, he pulled something from his pocket. A crumpled piece of paper. He held it high, eyes challenging. "You can't take me away again! Not again!" The crowd gasped, a wave of shock crashing over them. Elsa's chest tight, her vision narrowed on the paper. A faded photograph slipping from his fingers. It fluttered down like a leaf, revealing a smiling woman holding a baby that looked impossibly like David, Sita. Tears burned in Elsa's eyes, but the woman's face betrayed an emotion sharper than pain. Panic. "You shouldn't have brought that," she screamed, her voice shaking the crowd in desperation. "Don't you see? The gunshot had echoed earlier." David dropped like a falling star. But here, the revelation crashed harder. She abandoned him? Wasn't she his mother? The woman struggled, teeth gritted in evident conflict. You loved him. You should have stayed away." And then it happened. The world blurred into a whirlwind. and with a cry, the woman broke free from the officers, plunging toward David. "Sita!" Elsa gasped, as David blinked slowly, eyes dimming. But in that moment, everything changed. The long-hidden truth tore through the air. Infuriating, heartbreaking, brutal. "Sita?" Mark echoed, confusion lacing his tone. But the echo fell silent, and all around, people merely watched. A thick silence falling, jaws slack as the weight of this truth dawned. Who had abandoned who? As David lay there, breaths shallow, two lives intertwined, the mystery deepened. The gentle grip of the past tightened around Elsa's heart, demanding she choose between love and life, between familial duty and a once-lost chance. Encouraged by the silence, David whispered, his words barely a breath, "Please, don't let them take me again." And with that, the storm inside Elsa swelled, uncertainty crashing down like thunder, blending with the echoes of the past that left nothing but questions hanging in the air. She knew then, in that fragile moment, everything they thought they understood had shattered. David blinked, his breaths growing shallower, every wheeze a reminder of the fragility of this moment. "Please, don't let them take me again," he pleaded, his voice. Elsa's heart twisted, the panic in the air sharp enough to cut. She could feel the crowd grappling with uncertainty, eyes darting back and forth like frightened birds. Each face held shock, disbelief, anger, even sympathy. But none more than the woman, Sita, whose desperation spilled into the air like smoke. Suddenly, hands gripped Elsa's shoulders, yanking her backward. "Mom, we need to go! This isn't safe!" Mark shouted, his voice frantic, slicing through the tension surrounding them. "No!" Elsa cried out. "David needs—" But then the unexpected happened. A shot echoed again. Not a gunshot this time, but a loud crash. A thick wooden stand nearby splintered, collapsing beneath the weight of a crowd that surged forward as if drawn by an unseen force. In the chaos, a scream pierced the air, and a figure leaped from the debris. Another child, no more than 10 years old, eyes wide with terror. He skidded to a halt, locking eyes with David. "Don't let them take you," he screamed, raw and anguished. "What?" Elsa gasped, bewildered. Confusion twisted inside her like a raging storm. David shifted his gaze from the woman to this young boy, fear and recognition written on his face. Slowly, he nodded. "Ian?" The memory washed over Elsa like ice water. Ian? Sita's other son? She hadn't known. She thought he was lost long ago, too. How could this be happening? But then the explosive revelation hit her. Sita didn't just abandon one child, she kept another hidden. David wasn't just Sita's son. He was part of a shattered family, lost in the shadows of secrets she never wanted to confront. The boy darted toward David. "You're not alone! You never were!" he shouted, desperate, reaching out as if to pull him close. Sita broke free from the officer's grip, her eyes wide, swirling with shock and recognition. "Ian, no!" He didn't stop. David's breath hitched, caught between two worlds, two brothers. Elsa stood frozen, her heart racing as questions flooded her mind. What had she missed? How many truths lay buried beneath years of silence? Mark surged forward, eyes wild, confusion morphing into fury. "What the hell is going on?" he shouted at Elsa, but she barely heard him. A realization began to dawn, heavy and suffocating. Just then, flashing lights pierced the crowd, cutting through the panic like a knife. More police arrived, moving steadily toward them with authority, and shades of fear rippled through the throng. But all Elsa could do was focus on David and Ian. How could this be? "This isn't just coincidence," she muttered, a shiver coursing through her veins. Sita stepped closer to David, fear crackling in the air. "I had no choice. I thought they'd take him." A fresh wave of anger mixed with heartbreak surged within Elsa. "Take him from you?" she blurted, the outrage blinding her. Suddenly, a siren's wail drew closer, drowning out voices. Chaos erupted into confusion as officers began herding the crowd. Those who could fled. Time slipped as though it wanted to stretch, breaking under pressure. Then it happened. A loud crack of thunder rolled overhead. Rain began to pour down, sudden and blinding. Screams pierced the air as people rushed, searching for cover. In that moment of chaos, Elsa felt the weight of decisions and secrets tightening around her. "David, Ian, come here!" Sita cried, panic-stricken. But there was no sanctuary to run to. Elsa's world tipped over once more. Would they ever find safety? Questions erupted in her mind, sharp and demanding. What other hidden truths awaited? What memories remained buried beneath the surface? As David stumbled back, caught between two mothers, a brother, and a past unfolding like a cruel story, Elsa's heart sunk. It wasn't just about love or family. It was about the darkness they had all hidden, waiting for this very moment to explode. And now, like a delicate house of cards, it threatened to collapse completely. Everything they thought they knew teetered on the edge. Would David be saved, or would they all be swallowed by the storm of the past? The rain pounded down hard, washing away the chaos, but it couldn't cleanse the tension thick in the air. David lay there, breath hitching, Ian shouting, Sita scrambling forward, and Elsa stuck in disbelief. The only sound was the slap of rain against pavement, drowning out their voices, drowning out everything else. "David!" Sita cried out, her voice shaky. "Please!" But David's eyes were distant, flickering like a flame about to die. And then, a low rumbling sound interrupted the scene, barely discernible over the rain. It grew louder, a heavy vibration that made the ground shake beneath their feet. The crowd began to murmur, glancing around, alarmed. "Is there an earthquake?" someone yelled. But it wasn't shaking for that reason. The noise intensified, a low roar that climbed into a desperate howl. Suddenly, a massive van came barreling toward the park, tires screeching. It skidded to a halt, sending water splashing in every direction. The sliding door flew open, revealing a group of men clad in tactical gear, faces obscured. "What the?" Mark exclaimed, backing away, eyes wide. "Get down!" one of the men shouted, pulling out a megaphone, his voice slicing through the rain. "Everyone, move away from the boy!" Panic erupted. People scattered, shoving against each other, seeking shelter from the mounting chaos. Elsa's heart raced. "David!" she screamed, but her voice was drowned by the commotion. The officers rushed forward, pushing through the rippling crowd, while Sita and Ian cast desperate looks at each other. The world around them disintegrated into frantic motion. "Leave him alone! He hasn't done anything!" Sita shouted, but it fell on deaf ears. The officers were focused, resolute. "Step aside," another officer barked, moving directly to David. Then, the impossible happened. Sita lunged forward, arms outstretched. "No!" she cried. "He's not a criminal!" Elsa's breath caught in her throat. Then came a deafening crack. A blast rang out, but it wasn't the sound of a gunshot. It was the ominous boom of the van's back door slamming shut. As it did, an eerie hush fell over the park. Then, from the open doors, a figure emerged, a woman. She stepped out, drenched but resolute, holding a clipboard as if she were running a mundane meeting. "Sita!" she called calmly, her voice cutting through the storm like a knife. "It's time to end this charade." Sita froze, eyes wide, pain flashing across her features. "Charade? What do you mean?" "It was all staged," the woman continued, stepping closer, her eyes glinting with hard certainty. "You know that. It's time to stop running." Stunned gasps cycled through the crowd. Mark stared at Elsa. "What is happening?" But Elsa was locked in place, her heart pounding harder. "What do you mean, staged?" she asked, voice trembling. The weight of the world hung in the air, and every eye was on the woman who seemed to know everything. "I had no choice but to cut ties," the woman said coolly, a flicker of anguish crossing her features. "But I'm back now. This was never about him. It was about all of you, that boy and Ian. You can't hide forever, Sita." The air thickened with shock, and all at once everything shifted. The room spun with confusion and revelation. David's breaths came slower, heavy as the storm thrummed against the world. "Mom?" he whispered, eyes glazed. Elsa felt her heart drop. What had she just learned? David wasn't just a boy lost in a chaotic present. He was part of a cruel scheme tied to Sita's haunting past. "Sita, what did you do?" Elsa whispered, the urgency thrumming through her veins, choking her voice. In that moment, a flash of lightning lit everything up, a stark reminder of the storm raging inside their lives. The woman's gaze locked onto Elsa, a small smile lifting her lips, one that held a secret deeper than the rain itself. "You'll see. You all will see." And then she turned away, raising her hands, signaling the men to shield her as the real storm began. Heart pounding, Elsa stared at David, powerless as the truth hung heavy above them. What was real? What was a lie? The flood of questions buried her alive. What had they missed? What would the truth bring next? The rain hammered down, drowning out the chaos that danced around them. David lay on the ground, gasping for breath, as Ian shouted his name, tears streaming down his cheeks. Sita's panic painted her face, desperation clawing at her words. Meanwhile, Elsa felt a storm brewing inside her chest, a whirlwind of doubt and fear. "What is happening?" she whispered, grasping the reality around her, feeling the sharp edges of betrayal and confusion lurking just below the surface. And then, suddenly, the world tipped. The woman in tactical gear, the one who had stepped from the van, held up her clipboard, her eyes glinting with a sharp light. "David," she called, her voice cutting through the rain and the sorrow. "You know all of this was for you, right?" Something in her tone twisted in Elsa's gut. It didn't sound right. How could this be for him? What twisted game were they playing? "Stop!" Sita screamed, but it was too late. The tension in the air thickened as David's expression shifted, confusion etching deeper into his features. "What do you mean?" "For me?" he gasped, his breaths shaky. The officer beside the woman stepped forward, lifting a hand. "This is not—" But the woman brushed him aside, her voice ringing like a bell in the chaos. "You were never supposed to live like this, trapped in the shadows. We did what we had to do. You were meant to be saved." And just like that, a new wave of realization washed over everyone. The crowd fell silent, eyes wide, breaths held. Elsa felt the ground fall away beneath her. What did that mean? Saved. Who was she supposed to believe now? That's when everything shattered. In one swift motion, the woman produced a small device from her pocket, a remote. It glinted in the rain, a harbinger of what lay beneath the nightmare. She pressed a button. The sky lit up with a brilliant flash, followed by an ear-splitting thunderclap. Elsa's heart dropped. It wasn't the sound of thunder. It was the sound of something heavy crashing to the ground. The park shook beneath them, a convulsion of concrete and chaos. "Get down!" shouted one of the officers, rushing toward David. But the crowd was already surging, panic spreading like wildfire. Just then, screams erupted from all around. A massive metal structure, a partition that had held some kind of machinery, began to topple. An ominous, metallic groan rising above the deluge. Sita dove forward, arms outstretched toward her son. "David!" she cried, a desperate plea that hung in the torrential air. Ian screamed, reaching for his brother. Elsa stood frozen, the electric terror buzzing in her veins. She wanted to scream, wanted to reach out, but the chaos spiraled around her, blurring into a nightmarish landscape where time seemed to suspend, and her mind whirled as the massive structure crashed down with a thunderous roar. It obliterated everything in its path. Elsa shielded her eyes from the blinding light as debris flew like angry confetti. But then it hit her. David. In the chaos, she caught sight of him, struggling against the tide, eyes wide with realization as the world collapsed around him. "Mom!" he shouted, the word thick with confusion and pain. In that moment, something clicked deep inside her. Not just the connections they had forged, but the truth they had all hidden. And then she saw it. Sita's face, the terror and desperation. It wasn't just about rescuing a child. It was about defining who they all truly were, entwined in a dark web of lies. Then, as if the universe had decided to shift on its axis, another figure emerged from the wreckage, holding an object high above their head. A gun. The crowd gasped, and Elsa's heart stuttered, her breath caught. Fear clutching at her throat, the figure stepped closer, rain-soaked and smeared with mud, revealing a familiar face. "Surprise!" shouted Mark, a manic glint in his eye. "Did you really think I'd let you leave him? He belongs to me." Shock rippled through the crowd, followed by disbelief. The world, already a storm of chaos, spun off its axis. Suddenly, all relationships began to unravel as Sida's cries mixed with Elsa's rising horror. David wasn't just trapped. He was caught in a darker labyrinth of secrets that now threatened to consume them all. Would they lose him to betrayal? Or could love find a way through the wreckage? The answers hung just out of reach, swirling in the storm as Elsa steadied her breath, determined to fight through the debris of shattered lives and savage truths. Her heart beat a wild rhythm of hope and fear, pummeling against the unknown ahead. David's eyes widened, confusion mixing with fear as Mark brandished the gun. "He belongs to me!" Mark shouted, voice a fierce growl cutting through the rain. The world spun, a chaotic mess of emotions, fear, and desperation binding them all together. "Put it down, Mark!" Elsa yelled, her heart racing. But the words felt like stones in her throat. She could barely breathe. Every second hung like a noose. "Why would I?" Mark's eyes gleamed, wild and unhinged. "He could ruin everything. Mom, how could you even trust him?" Sita sobbed, fear churning in her, eyes darting toward her sons. "You don't understand," she begged, desperation lacing her voice. But then, crack! The sound collided with the rain. Reverberating like a bone snapped in half. Something shifted, and everyone froze. From the edge of the park, a loud explosion ripped through the air, shattering the stillness. A blinding flash lit up their faces, gripping everyone in a paralyzing fear that pierced deep within. The crowd gasped, heads turning toward the sound. A massive plume of smoke billowed from a nearby building, darkening the sky. It exploded without warning, pieces of debris raining down like the wicked fingers of fate reaching for them. "No!" Sita shrieked, instinctively shielding David with her body. The world blurred as chaos unfolded. Mark stumbled back, his grip on the gun faltering as the shockwave rippled through the park. "What the hell?" he gasped, eyes wide with disbelief. The crowd erupted into chaos, scattering like leaves in a storm. Elsa gripped David, pulling him close as the uncertainty raged around them. But amid the uproar, something unexpected happened. The smoke thickened, and out from it, two figures emerged, silhouetted by the billowing chaos. Tall, imposing, faces half hidden. As they stepped closer, the world warped, sharp lines of tension drawn taut. And then it hit. A voice, cold and commanding, sliced through the din. "Sita, we need to talk." Elsa's heart raced. It was a man she recognized. A face from the past, one that sent chills down her spine. The kind that buried secrets and twisted stories. "No, it can't be," she breathed, eyes locking onto him. The male figure approached Sita, a wicked smirk pulling at his lips. "You thought you could run forever?" he mocked, eyes glimmering in a way that made Elsa's skin crawl. "You know what you owe." Shock wrapped around Elsa like chains. Her mind raced. What did he mean? What history was unfolding before them? "Get away from her!" David shouted, heart pounding, instincts kicking in. The raw emotion pulled at Elsa, tightening her resolve. But then, in that silence before the storm broke loose, A second figure stepped forward, this time a woman with fierce eyes blazing like embers. "Stop this! You don't know what you're messing with!" As she moved closer, recognition flickered. It was Clara, a name from forgotten memories, tangled twists of loyalty and betrayal. "Clara?" Elsa's voice trembled, the name cutting through the haze. Clara nodded, determination burning in her gaze. "Sita, we need to leave now, before it's too late." Confusion clouded the air as secrets pulsed between them, unspoken truths like a live wire. The crowd shrank back, whispers igniting trepidation. The bewildered glances were like daggers, piercing into the heart of the unfolding drama. Then, David's voice, small and cracking, rose above the din. "Who are you? Why are you here?" Elsa's breath hitched. How had they ended up here, caught in a web of lies thicker than the rain? Before she could process, another explosion ripped through the air, this time closer, filling the park with the scent of burning wood and chaos. "Look out!" someone screamed. Everyone ducked and shielded their heads as debris rained down. The world twisted, dark and frantic, and in those lightning moments of turmoil, Elsa felt her hand slip from David's, grasping at air like it could somehow pull the truth back into reach. In a heartbeat, everything changed. "Mark!" she screamed, fear clenching her throat. But he was gone, lost in the shadows, lost among the chaos of it all. Sita's scream echoed, raw and anguished, and as she reached for David, Elsa understood. Nothing was as it seemed. Their lives were already written in the flames of secrets. And the real question lingered in the air like smoke. Who were they really? What truths lay buried in the rubble? As the storm raged on, the answers were still hidden, further away, and yet so painfully close. The rain hammered down relentlessly, mingling with shards of confusion and dread. David lay there, breaths coming in sharp gasps, while Sita clasped him tightly. Ian was beside her, shaking, frightened for both of his brothers. Elsa's heart raced in her chest, knowing they were trapped in a spiraling nightmare. The air was thick with tension, each heartbeat pulsing like a drum. Mark's eyes flickered with uncertainty, the gun wavering in his grip as reality reversed itself around him. And then, out of nowhere, a deafening roar erupted from above. Everyone looked up. The sky parted like a curtain, and a helicopter descended from the dark clouds, its loud blades slicing through the rain like thunder. Spotlights flooded the park, illuminating terrified faces. "Get down!" someone shouted, panic bubbling in every corner of the crowd. They fell to their knees, hands clutching heads, scrambling for cover as the downpour intensified. "Mark, what's happening?" Elsa yelled, her voice fighting against the storm. She locked eyes with her son, fear creeping under her skin, wrapping around her heart. But just then, the spotlight landed on David, illuminating him like a target. "David, step away from her!" came a voice from somewhere high above, booming through the storm. Her heart stopped. "Don't you dare!" Sita cried, her voice breaking, wide eyes fixed on the source of command from the helicopter. "You can't take him. He's mine. Get him out of there!" The voice came again, sharp, demanding. More officers emerged from the shadows, flanking the scene, guns drawn, eyes narrowed, like hawks hunting prey. Chaos erupted. "Who are these people?" someone wailed. Gasps echoed throughout the crowd, spreading like wildfire. Elsa's heart thudded painfully. They had entered a battlefield, and the stakes felt impossibly high. Suddenly, amid the noise, David blinked, eyes wide with terror, as he caught sight of a life jacket being tossed from the helicopter. "What?" His voice trembled, laced with confusion. The officers moved closer, shoving people aside, panic overtaking reason. "We've had enough of this charade. Get the child," one officer spat, pushing through the crowd. And then it hit her, an understanding so sudden it stole her breath. Mark had done this. He had orchestrated all of it. Her mind raced, piecing together the fragments, the tangled lies. "Mark?" she whispered, her voice small, filled with disbelief. But her son's gaze, with a wild, desperate look, didn't meet hers. "I had to!" he yelled, the gun shaking in his hand. "You don't give it!" He's not one of us." A sharp gasp cut through her. "What do you mean, not one of us?" Ian shrieked, clutching David's arm. The air crackled with tension, every heartbeat pounding like a drum. "He changes everything," Mark continued, eyes frantic. "I couldn't let him, but before he could finish..." The helicopter roared overhead, releasing a surge of rainwater that drenched them all in a sense of urgency and danger. Out of the tumult, a sudden realization struck through Elsa. David wasn't just a boy. He was the key to a past they all buried deep. And buried with it were secrets more profound than she could understand. David's voice broke through, soft yet strong amidst the chaos. "You don't know. You don't know what I am." Silence hung. The crowd hushed, awaiting revelation. Shocked faces pointed toward him, breaths suspended. What did he mean? What was he hiding? The air shifted, drawing them close, pressing around them like an invisible vortex. "David?" Sita breathed, a mixture of fear and disbelief etching her features. "What are you saying?" His gaze swept the crowd, eyes blazing with vulnerability and raw truth. "You have to understand, I'm not just your son, Sita. I'm part of something bigger than any of us." And then, with a sudden flash in his eyes, he shouted, "I can't let you control me anymore!" "I'm not what you think." Shocking gasps erupted. Intrigue sparked a flutter amongst the crowd. Suddenly, the ground trembled, nearly knocking everyone off balance. The helicopter's blades stilled as an ominous energy filled the air. Within a blink, chunks of earth erupted beneath them, and from the depths of chaos, something colossal began to rise. The very foundation beneath their feet began to split open, as fresh terror washed over everyone. A glowing figure emerged from the fissure, light spilling across the park, twisting reality into a surreal landscape. Who are you?" Elsa whispered, the words trembling on her lips. And with that sudden proclamation, their entire reality shifted. They were on the brink of something unimaginable, a cascade of truths awaiting to surface. And Elsa stood frozen, grasping at the threadbare edges of their existence as everything spiraled out of control. The glowing figure rose slowly, revealing a face that sent a shockwave through the curl. But it wasn't Sita. The features were too sharp, the expression too twisted. This was an uncanny mirror image, a darker version of someone Sita had once been. "David," the figure said, voice echoing like a chant, "you belong with me." As David staggered back, confusion painted his face. "No, you're not my mother," he shouted, trembling as a cold dread crept into his bones. "What have you done?" Sita cried, taking a step forward, protective instinct blazing. The strange figure grinned, dark eyes glimmering with unspeakable knowledge. She pointed a finger at Sita, an accusatory gesture that pierced the air, her voice dripping with malice. You think you can run? You think you can change what you've done? A gasp rippled through the crowd. Mark fell silent, eyes darting between the two women, fear written all over his face. He lowered the gun slightly, unsure, confusion battling with rage. What do you mean, change what she's done? He stammered. Sita, who is she? It's not who she is, came the chilling response as the figure tilted her head, eyes glinting with revealing pain. It's what she represents. She was never meant to abandon you, David, or Ian. I was. Another wave of murmurs surged through the throng, disbelief hanging heavy in the air. The rain continued to pour, cold drops mingling with the sweat of anxiety, chilling everyone to the bone. Stop it! Ian shouted, clutching David's arm tighter. Stop playing games! Just tell us the truth! Elsa felt her heart race, pounding so hard it throbbed in her ears. What does that even mean? She cried out, desperate for clarity. You're saying she's not his mother? The figure laughed, a hollow, cruel sound that sent shivers down their spines. Oh, she is, or was. It depends on your perspective. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? You're all connected in ways you don't even understand. A chill swept through Elsa, deep and penetrating. Her vision blurred as realization began to creep in like murky water into a cracked dam. What do you know? She whispered, her voice quaking with the weight of buried secrets coming to life. We were all in this together. The figure continued, moving closer, its form shimmering with strange, otherworldly light. You have no idea how deep this goes. Everything they told you was a lie. Secrets bound us to this moment. I don't understand, Mark yelled, the gun shaking in his hand. What are you trying to say? And then, in one blazing moment, everything turned upside down. The figure raised her arms, and the air crackled. You all think this is about saving David, she said. But the truth is, it's about what you've lost, what you buried. Sita's not the only one with a secret. The rain paused, as if the earth itself held its breath. What? Sita breathed, fear flaring in her eyes like a dying ember. Your mother. The figure's lips curled. She's alive. She never died. And she's been watching all of you. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Frozen looks of disbelief, mixed with horror, swept over their faces like shadows. As a sense of dread wound tightly around their throats. How? David's voice cracked. How do you know? Because I am part of your bloodline, she replied, voice chilling enough to bring everything to a standstill. And everything you believe, you've built on lies. Elsa felt the ground shift beneath her. What does that mean for us? She whispered, shaking, the weight of truth pressing against her chest. The figure only smiled, cryptic and powerful, as the air crackled again. Your lives are about to change forever, she said softly, and when the truth is revealed, you might wish it hadn't. And just like that, a new storm moved in, dark and terrifying, swallowing the last remnants of safety as bodies trembled at the precipice of new truths now rearing their ugly heads, As the figure continued to stand between them and the truth, a surge of emotion rippled through the crowd. Elsa felt the weight of years pressing down on her. No more lies, no more secrets. David deserved better. "Stop this!" Sita shouted, planting herself firmly in front of David. "You're not going to take him!" The glowing woman smirked. "I don't need to take him. He's already bound to this destiny. The truth is in his blood, Sita. Your blood." David shook his head, eyes wide. "I'm not some pawn," he cried, trembling hands clenching into fists. "I won't be part of this game." With that, a burst of energy exploded in the air. The surrounding chaos swirled into a maelstrom. Gasps filled the crowd as David stepped forward, vibrating with determination. "I choose my path!" At his words, the glowing figure flickered, a momentary glitch in the absolute power she held. "You don't understand!" she shrieked, her voice twisting into desperation. "You are not free!" But David's eyes shone with defiance. "I'm free to choose!" And as if a dam had burst, a wave of light wrapped around him, glowing brighter than anything they had ever seen. Then a deeper silence fell over the park, almost soothing. It felt like a breath, a collective inhale as everyone finally grasped the power of the moment. Just beyond the gate of destiny lay the truths long hidden. Elsa moved closer, heart pounding. "David!" she called, her voice breaking. Memories flashed through her mind. The laughter, the pain, everything they had lost. "You are stronger than they think." The light pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, the energy charging the air around them. As it overflowed, Elsa and Sita felt it too. A warmth that kindled hope in their souls. "Together!" they shouted instinctively, a rallying cry. For the first time, they were united against the darkness, against the chaos that had bound them. The figure began to dissolve, threads of darkness feathering away into the wind. "This isn't over," her voice echoed, twisting into an ominous whisper. "You can't escape the past." But it was too late. David stood tall, a beacon in the storm. The light enveloped him, seeping through every corner of the park. Glances shifted, disbelief morphing into astonishment as frustrations melted away, replaced by unity. Just then, as the shadows retreated, David turned to them, eyes still blazing with fierce determination. "We need each other," he said, voice steady and true. "I know now who I am, and I know I'm not alone." Sita rushed forward, pulling him into a tight embrace, tears streaming down her face. "You are my son. You are never alone." Elsa joined them, the warmth of their connection igniting a fire in her chest. "We will always fight for you, David." The crowd erupted into applause, overwhelming emotions spilling into the air. Each person felt a connection, a part of a family, bound not only by blood, but by truths unearthed. The helicopter overhead began to retreat, finally dissolving into a whisper of freedom. David stood resolutely amidst the remnants of chaos, turning to the crowd with a determined smile. "Let's build something new together." As they began to move forward, Elsa recognized pieces of hope within the chaos. She took one breath after another, thanking every moment that brought them here. But deep inside, a shadow of doubt lingered. What future lay ahead? With the past still hanging just out of reach, would they truly escape its grasp? The rain eased to a soft patter, and as they began to move into the brighter sky, uncertainty still danced at the edges. But for now, they were together. In the silence that followed their triumph, a reality unfolded. Life would hold new mysteries, and while some shadows remained, they had carved a new path forward, hand in hand. So, what do you think happens next for David and Sita? Let's talk in the comments. And you must subscribe now so you don't miss any exclusive stories coming your way. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the finale. Don't wait 1 second longer to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this ending. You know it matters. Let's keep the conversation going.